are a group of care experts with a vision of creating a world where care experienced people are thriving, not just surviving.
We share our knowledge and experience to inform, uplift and empower young care experienced people to navigate the conflicts and challenges of life.
In this season, we cover a range of different topics, all with a focus on personal development, from relationships, mental health and trauma, thinking about success and reimagining the care system.
We know that some of these topics can be triggering, so before you listen, have a read of the summary so you can get an idea of what we'll be talking about. And as always, look after yourself and reach out if you need support.
Hi everyone and welcome back to Let's Talk Conflict. My name's Evie, I'm going to be a host for today's episode. Today we're joined by George, Alice, Shanika and Ashley. So in today's episode we're going to be speaking about if we could reform the care system, what it would look like and what our idyllic perfect care system would look like. So we're going to start off with a little check-in. So how's everyone's week been? How is everyone?
Good.
Yeah, mine's been good, thanks.
Glad to hear it. Yeah, mine's not been too bad so far. So shall we just jump straight into it? So if we were going to redesign the care system, what principles should the new system be based on? And what would be at the heart of it for us? I can go first. So for me, it would be more funding, but also better spending on the funding that they've already got, making sure that it's going to things like preventative social care, early help, and making sure that, that they're spending it better. But I feel like the first things first is we just need so much money pouring into the care system. That's a massive one for me.
I totally agree, and I think as well, like, it's so difficult comparing like local authority to local authority, I know, but you know, there should be a general amount that is like fair. You get more support, more funding, more stuff in certain authorities that you're not getting in others. And, you know, we talk about that postcode lottery and stuff. It's just something that shouldn't happen or shouldn't be an issue where it just is, and it just creates more issues after that. So, you know.
Yeah, no, 100% on that. It always boils back down to the postcode lottery and the places that are seen as the more affluent areas. They get better funding and therefore have better outcomes. Because they've got a bit more money to be able to afford to care, as you said before, Alice, so perfectly.
Yeah, and also they don't have as many people in their borough in care. Usually, like, if it's a wealthier borough, there's less children in need of intervention. So it would be better if it was like a per child fund instead of that area gets that area gets that. It's like, no, however many kids you got, that's how much money you get per child, you know.
You're talking about like a needs analysis. If you could bring in, say you have a situation where you want to create an intervention, this brings you back to like sports psychology in my uni. So obviously to create an intervention, you need to know like what's needed, what's the issues, what's going on in all areas. So it's their emotional state, their life situation, what's wrong with their sporting performance, what happens when it's going well, everything. It covers everything. So you have a real good sort of like understanding of where they are, also where they are when they're good. So you can really sort of navigate that intervention towards that good. And we're like, oh yeah, no, we know where the good is, we know where the good is, we know where the good is. And of course, like a lot of things in the care system is subjective, and you know, there is room for interpretation, but at the same time, that's where that needs analysis could come in.
Yeah.
And, you know, because it does cover that whole, say, lens or perspective, and it does look at the actual heart of the issue, and then you would do what you're saying, Alice, is that per child, it would be better.
I completely agree with that. And I think what I'm taking from that is you need to know what works well and what doesn't work well to be able to say what you need to do next. You need to know, what's working, what isn't type thing. You need to have a clear understanding of the situation before you can make like positive decisions around it.
It could be as simple as like on paper, putting them with their brother instead of a foster carer. On paper, you'd think, that would be better for the child because they'll be with family, blah, blah, blah. But they might just completely despise their sibling and it's going to be even more disruptive. It could be as simple as that, and that's what's so frustrating. Sorry to butt in.
No, not at all. I think it's such a valid point, because it's going back down to what you were saying. It's meeting the child's needs. It's not getting a paintbrush and covering everyone and saying, one shoe fits all type thing, and putting everyone in the same boat, because everyone is different. Like, we know as humans, everyone is an individual. Everyone is different. Like, everyone's DNA is different. So, and our experiences, they might be similar, but they are different, so you can't expect to treat someone, I'm saying that in quotations, like, support someone with the needs. Can't expect to just have a set way to support someone and to expect that meets every individual's needs, because it's not going to. And so, I agree with what you're saying, Alice. You need to make, if we were to fund each young person, the funding is per young person, that would definitely help with the postcode lottery. But it also, just me being a skeptical and being a bit like, knowing how systems can work around things, I think there would have to be a minimum where every young person has a minimum spend, that is their minimum amount that's and it's not like peanuts.
Well, even if they don't spend it, they could literally be like, right, we're going to save that for a deposit, or we're going to save that for you for when you're going to need it, because you trust me, you're going to need it.
Yeah, exactly.
And I think the social worker should be penalised for money not spent.
Yeah.
If like a manager's looking at the accounts and they're noticing that one young person's got so much money like on their, I don't want to say tab, but you know what I mean? Like, if each young person had an account and, before that number of whatever it should cost came up, someone had done a cost analysis of every single thing they're going to need throughout their time in care, blah, blah, blah. Like, why are you not spending this money? Why hasn't this young person had that? There's things that, like, all human beings need, but there could also be things that, like, say, for example, George or sport, they could have shuffled the money around and gone, right, well, you're not interested in this, but actually we could use the money for this. And also there could be leverage as well, or a bit of base for, you've actually got some quite profound learning difficulties. Why don't we're allowed to apply for more money now because you have extra needs, and it be about helping you to find your path and your journey. So like any kind of enrichment that could help you, like acting classes or cooking classes or music lessons, driving lessons, anything like that. It could be, way more person-centered care instead of just kind of bare minimum, keep you out of trouble, you're not going to get much.
I completely agree, mate. And the thing is, the work I do, the fundraising and all that money that we get, we have to spend it all. We have to spend every single penny, and it's like some people might not even need it, and we're still giving it to them. And the same approach is needed with this. I totally agree.
Yeah.
I think that's where charities and like government funded, like local authorities and charities are on completely different pages. They're just worlds and worlds apart. They really are.
Because charities they're innovative. They're constantly looking at themselves and going, how can we do this better? How can we spend this money better? Are we actually helping? Are we actually doing what we want, what we're trying to do? Are these people benefiting? That's the main thing. But they're constantly trying to get data on how they've helped people or what they've done. So they can prove that to donors and say, look, this is what we're doing with the money, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's where the accountability, because they have to prove that to get funding.
Yeah.
With social work, you have a pot of money, so you don't have to fight for it. You don't have to show anything that you've done. I think the only thing that's recorded now is probably the education results of looked after children. There's other stuff recorded, but it's not in the public and it's not released so that people can actually see it.
Yeah.
So,
and if you think about it, our donors are the general public that are paying tax. So they need to be able to see.
Yeah. But there's no like things visible to say, oh, this is where the money's going. And, say, for example, you had 100 young people not in work or employment. Is there a target to get it down from 100 to like 8? How is that happening? Is the public aware of that? So there's nothing around like specific targets. So a better system would have like a target. There would be some accountability to say what went wrong, why didn't this happen, or how can we learn, how can we improve. But I think within the system is currently there is the system of it's money driven. So it's about, have we got enough money to do this? That's all I think is happening right now.
That drives a certain mindset and culture as well.
Yeah.
That drives that kind of mindset of like, no, we'll just brush it under the carpet. And that's that culture of like not prevention or intervention or early prevention. It's just, chaos, which really is the wrong, the completely wrong approach.
Yeah, and I honestly feel as well, like, if you take care experience as a coin, you've got one side which is the care experience, and then you've got the other side which is the social work experience. They are two sides of the same coin. And I feel like in order to get the best care from social workers and professionals within the sector, there needs to be an environment where good practice is celebrated and encouraged. And what can we do to ensure that you have the best environment in order to do your job and look after these very vulnerable children that have been through awful things, and by proxy you are going through them too, because you are exposed to those traumas. You may not be actually on the receiving end of it, but you are, by an extension, involved. And that takes a toll. Like, if you watch a show where something traumatic's happening, you feel sad, and it's not real, and it's happening in real life. There needs to be, like, you only should be penalised as a social worker if you are not doing the care part right, if you are not caring, if you are not providing the safety, the stability, the nurture. That's when you should be penalised, not if you're spending too much money. And also, if there's no money available, you can't be penalised when the young child doesn't get what they need. They're kind of like giving social workers these impossible hurdles and then telling them off when they're not doing the impossible. Is creating a system where young people aren't getting what they need, and the people that are meant to be giving the young people what they need can't do that either. And then they turn us against each other. We shouldn't be fighting each other. We should be uniting, because we're stronger together. And I think at the end of the day, all of us want the same thing. So our cause is their cause, vice versa. So it's not just about having these, let's go down from 100 unemployed people to 80, because, it's fine saying that, but I feel like they're sending out these, right, these are now new targets, go. Well, how are we going to do this? Because having 100 people unemployed, we can't just force someone into a job, especially if their education isn't what it needs to be, if their social skills aren't what it needs to be, if their trauma's getting in the way of being able to be part of the community and society. Like, let's start way before that and think, there's a fair few people unemployed when they leave the care system. Let's make sure that doesn't happen, not by forcing children into a job, but by enabling an environment where they end up there, because that's just the natural path. There's no desperation, there's no shaving down this square peg to fit into a round hole. It's cultivation. Encourage those young people to be the plant they were always going to be, but in a safe, kind of supported way. Do you know what I mean? Don't just shove these children now into employment, or, the apprenticeship schemes are great and the internships, but what happens after that?
And are
they ready?
Yeah, that's where, if you have these targets, you can actually go in and say, why probably maybe another borough is having 80 or a different number, and you can actually go in and study what's making some young people able to go into work. They can actually figure out what's working and what's not working. Yes. And then they can start to improve. But if it's all based around, like, have we got the money? It's not because it's focused on money. So you need to actually look at the finer details. Like, and again, it goes back to stigma as well, because the stigma is, young people in care, they're not going to do well, and which is not true. There's so many young people doing well, but they're not shown in the media, or they're not studied or looked at, they're just celebrated. They don't actually investigate, or if there's investigations done, because I did some research on this. There is research out there, but I don't think a lot of people use it or apply it in practice, or they don't know how to apply it in practice, because again, it goes back to the training. The training isn't that great as well. You're actually rushed through the training process and thrown in the deep end, and you either sink or swim, but yeah, so that's why we need targets and we need accountability. Because if you're going to sit down and talk about these things, things will change, hopefully.
I feel like as well, like accountability needs to be way more attainable, accessible. Like I made a couple of complaints when I was younger because I had an advocate. That's not really something that's known about. And then having the advocate, I made the complaint, and the person who I made the complaint about refused to apologise. Their manager had to apologise for them, and then nothing happened, when they were extremely unprofessional and actually very cruel in what they did. And there's no accountability. Oh yeah, that young person, yeah, but they're all like that, aren't they? Do you know what I mean? Like tar us all with the same brush. They cry wolf all the time. Half of it's lies when it isn't. There needs to be a direct, like a survey, young person survey. Do you feel cared for by your social worker? Are you being treated well? Like social workers need to be not worried, but they need to know that when they are, and I'm not talking about mistakes, because we all make mistakes. I mean, there are some mistakes that aren't forgivable. I get, okay, fair enough. But I'm talking about like interpersonal conflict, which arises all the time. They need to not be able to lose where they are and lash out or speak badly, or they need to feel like I am going to have repercussions for my actions, because believe you me, young people have repercussions not only for their own actions but everyone that's around them as well. We're the naughty one at school. We're not allowed around our friends because we're in care. If something goes bad, it's always the person in care's fault. We have that constant like weight on our shoulders, and I feel like yes, social workers do have pressure, but it's not for the right things. It's all about financing and making sure tick boxes are ticked and admin, when it really should be about, are you interacting with this young person like they're human? Because that's what needs to be happening. And if you're not, these are the things that are going to be happening. Why aren't meetings recorded? Why aren't there more independent reviewing officers? It was a legal entitlement to have one, and I never had one. Or they weren't there at least. And so there needs to be like a quicker, more efficient accountability. I mean, and also, I mean, it's such a nuanced kind of complex thing, because if you're a young person, you're 5 years old, do you have a concept of what rights are? How are you going to know if you're being treated badly when that's kind of all you know anyway? Like, this needs to be looked at on a grander scale. There needs to be more eyes on behaviour of both parties all the time. Accountability, integrity, all of these things, it needs to be paramount to the process of having a care experience, and you need to feel like you're being looked after, almost like a big brother or sister. They're there, you're being protected. That was missing for me in my care experience.
No, I completely agree with you on that, Alice. I think it's about like changing people's attitudes completely, but I think there's also something around definitely having making people more accountable, having a system in place where it's not hidden, and it's people are made more aware of things. And going back to like the targets for young people and things like that, it's once again it's completely rethinking about that. It's having a look at that and looking at the targets that we've already got, and like thinking, does that align with the outcomes that we're wanting to achieve for young people? Because for me, another big one would be to ensure that young people experience love and care and stability and nurturing. And that needs to be at the heart of our social care, and that's been lost because, like we say, people are just running on empty type thing. They're it's constantly just crisis intervention. It's not crisis prevention or even prevention work at all. But I think that kind of leads us on nicely to what should be in place, or what do we think should be in place to improve the lives of young people in care. So like for me, a big thing is like just ensuring, like I said, making sure that young people experience love and care and stability and nurture. And that, yeah, it means making sure they've got a home, a happy home to live in. But it also means like giving them experiences, giving young people experiences to try and see new things, taking them to a farm, taking them abroad on a holiday. I were reading something before, and it was about a lady in Denmark who runs a children's home, and about the good practice that basically goes on in this children's home. And it's a complete community. One night a week, the older children between like 16 and 18, they'll cook for the younger children, not anything special, but just something light, something nice and easy. And that's preparing them, getting into, learning how to cook meals, learning how to cook for other people. And then once a year, they go abroad to a different country to go on holiday and experience something. And I mean, how many young people in our care system have never experienced a holiday? I've never tried different foods. I've never seen different animals. I've never even seen, like, if they're in a city, I've never seen like fields and different types of flowers. It's things like that. It's experiences like this that we need to be giving to our young people. At the end of the day, social services are our corporate parents. So they love to use this line, would it be good enough for your child in the local care offer? And it's like, well, would it be? For your children, you want them to go out and experience new things and try new things and be open to things. So we should be doing that for, in my eyes, the people that need it the most, which is young people in care.
I completely agree, because it is the experiences that shape us, and a lot of the time we don't necessarily have those nice experiences. It's usually, bad ones that we remember. And to have that bit of nice, or that bit of like, break where you can go and do something that, you wouldn't normally do, like you're talking about, Evie. And, someone could hold on to that for the rest of their life. Someone could be like, that's what I want. That's where I want to be. That's how I want to feel again. It's putting something tangible in their memory. It's putting something really tangible in their memory that's like, that's just good for their well-being and just nice. And that in itself could really, give people that sort of boost they need, or that vision, or that sort of path. At least they will know what it would feel like once they're like happy, or if they're in a good place, because a lot of the time they're not.
Of course, like at the end of the day, we're all aware, like society as a whole in general is aware that people's mental health is rapidly declining. Like everyone has really, really suffered throughout the pandemic. It's all been different, but it is massively, massively affected young people in care. Like there was a report, there was an article made by The Guardian, and it said a fifth of children in care had self-harmed throughout the pandemic. And to me, like, I don't see them figures as reliable whatsoever. I'd see that 1/5, I'd see that more likely as like 3/5, to be honest.
Yeah.
Got to think of where they've been able to actually get in touch with these young people. It said there's around 80,000 young people in care in England, and they managed to speak to 1,300. That was the statistics that they got from speaking to those young people. I imagine them to be, in real life, be a lot higher. And it's exposing young people to positive, happy experiences that is going to help with their mental health, help create a positive an environment for them to feel happy and feel positive emotions, because they have been 9 times out of 10, a reason why a young person is in care is because they've been exposed to neglect or abuse, or some form of neglect and abuse. And it's like, yeah, if all they've been exposed to is negative sadness, then they need to have these experiences to show them what life can be like, and so to help their mental health.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I am living proof of that. I feel like, because I You know, I wasn't good in school. I wasn't good anywhere really. Everyone was telling me how much of a naughty person I was, or how bad I was, bad behaved, whatever. I didn't go to school. But then as soon as I started playing sport, I was told how amazing I was, how good I could be. You know, I had all these people around me that were just nice, being nice to me. I've gone to tournaments where I've been like, you know, meeting just really important people, and they're treating me like I'm one of them, and I'm like, I'm really not. But you know what I mean? It gives you that buzz and that feeling and that emotion. You know, it's like something. So you get a taste of something, you want to do it again and again and again. If someone's telling you you're good, someone telling you, you know, you're going to be amazing, or you got potential, or you got talent. If you do this, that, and the other, you're going to be good. Good. You're going to go and do that. You're going to feel like, yes, that's where I want to be. That's only where I want to be, because everywhere else is so bad. And another thing I was going to say actually with this, you know, they won't help you unless unless it's like educational. That's their like policies.
Yeah.
Like if it's educational, I'm doing that in brackets, by the way. And you know, that can mean so many things, but it's so restricted at the same time. You know, why is it so restricted? Like so many things can be educational. So many things can be just like we're talking about that well-being and all these things. You know, they say they need to participate in well-being and health activities and stuff like that in policies, but like, what does that mean? What does that look like? You know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
The definitions of that needs to change. Like their definition, social care's definitions of well-being and education needs to be re-looked at and changed so that they see these things like sports and meeting up with a positive person to just have a coffee and have a nice chat. They see that as really important, imperative things that are needs and that must be prioritised for this young person to thrive.
I agree. Going back to the money, I think if we focus on money, then you can't really focus on love. And I think love is free. Caring for somebody is free. You know, it doesn't take money to do that. It takes empathy, and it takes you having that headspace to do it. You know, a lot of social workers are under a lot of pressure and are risk averse, which kind of prevents that from happening. But if the system was to change whereby social workers were actually given a way to be more therapeutic in their approach, or probably go back into the communities and like be more like make relationships in the community, like a community social worker going into the schools, going to like you know, parenting, you know, classes, even though they don't exist, but stuff like that I think will provide a way for social workers to be more therapeutic. And maybe it might be that you split the system whereby you have some social workers that are mainly therapeutic or preventative, and then you have those that are more risk averse, maybe in safeguarding and stuff like that. But yeah, you need, for it to work, you need love, because the reason why a lot of us go into the care system is because we're unloved. And the only thing that can heal us is love. It's not money, because throwing money at something, yes, it gives you material things, but ultimately it's love. And most of my research that I've done around young people that come out of the care system and probably gone on to do well, they always talk about having somebody that really care about them, or somebody that show them love, and somebody that go above and beyond. So it's not money, it's actually people caring and being allowed to care. And it's free. Love is free. It doesn't cost the love.
I think it goes back to what Alice said before. It's so true, Shanika. Love is free, I think, but people need to be able to afford to care, and that is especially the people within the care system. I'll never ever forget you saying that, Alice. It stuck with me, and that's what it is. People, I can't see how, and what has gave me such like a fire inside is because I'm like, how can people not care about young people? Why don't people care that young people are being failed, and we must do something? We must use our voice to speak out and make people aware. And it's like, genuinely now, I don't believe that social workers have come in with bad intentions. I do believe that they came in wanting to help, wanting to support young people, and wanting to do better and do good. But I just don't feel the system itself, the social services system, supports them in being able to afford to care. And that's why we need to look at like other countries that are doing better and learn why they're doing better, and no, it doesn't. The young people themselves don't. We don't necessarily need £3,000 a week. We need the love. That's exactly what we need. But we also understand that social workers have got bills to pay. They need the money too. And so, like, you know, if we look after the people that are looking after the young people, then hopefully their outcomes would be a lot better too.
Yeah, and I think as well, like, afford to care, yes, fiscally, right, like financially, but caring is free financially, but caring is not free, like, mentally and emotionally. And I feel like in understanding that, yes, social workers, they need money, we all need money, but they need to be given tools and care in the way that they need to be not burnt out emotionally or mentally. They need to be in an environment where they can afford to care mentally and emotionally. Like, empathy is taxing. Like, I have to, like, shut my eyes sometimes and just not see it, or I get desensitized because it's just too taxing. It's too much. And, you know, throwing money at social workers is not going to then all of a sudden enable them to be able to deal with the awful things they have to see. And then if you look at it the way that, like, it's the same for young people. For example, Wales have just said that they're going to be now universal basic income. So there's a trial going on where I think it's young people from 18 to 20 will be getting £1,600 a month to live on. That is great. Love that. Really good. However, are we just prolonging the inevitable? After those 24 months, are they then going to be not able to get a job with the same amount of money or more, so that the lifestyle they are now used to living, they can't keep that going? Is their rent going to be too expensive now? You know, are they actually able to cope with that amount of money a month? Do they understand budgeting? Are they also involved in education, enrichment, life building, like life skills building? Like, what are we doing to make sure that that money is only to facilitate a situation where when that money runs out, they are not going to notice. They are going to be on to the next level. They'll be earning money from a job or some kind of business plan they've got going, whatever. They need that money should be to facilitate the healing and, you know, the bettering of their skills of being an adult. Like, being a child, every day of your life as a child is preparation and training for adult life.
Yeah.
You know, and if you just look for a second of what it's like for us as care leavers, our world is grey. We're often very poor. We've had extreme traumas within our life. If we're poor, that means our family haven't come from, you know, professional. We're working class. You know, we're not exposed to any kind of enrichment. If you said to someone who had only ever eaten bread and butter their whole life, or what you fancy for dinner, you can have anything, they're going to say bread and butter because they don't even know that other food exists, right? How can you expect someone in care to know what they want to do with their life, have any kind of, like, belief they're going to do it, to be able to get a career? They have no experience outside of the environment they've grown up in. And if you want people to have jobs when they leave care, don't put have job when they leave care as a target. Put have experience of life so they know where they want to go. Putting these targets in is almost like pie in the sky when all of the base necessities are not there. We need a situation where we have the freedom of making a few mistakes, learning, trying, doing this, doing that. And then once we get to adulthood, we're ready. When professionals are looking at these targets and looking at these issues, they only know their environment, they only know their experiences, and sometimes it really doesn't correlate. And it's so important to have care experienced people involved in these policies, involved in these processes. But no, you don't understand, because a lot of the time we're literally trying to keep our head above water. How are we going to be able to develop a life that we're going to take with us when we leave care when we are struggling to breathe? You have to be able, and that £1,600 a month, yeah, great, that's going to help do that. But also, we need the support to be able to make that money count, to make it matter, to make it not just 2 years where you're not falling down And then once you don't get the money anymore, you're falling down again. Like, it needs to be looked at that. You know, stop prolonging the inevitable, change the end of the story, give us more to work with, you know?
Going back to what you just said, Alex, about like jobs, the negative outcomes for looked after children that's in the current system is showing there's something going on, there's something wrong. Because a healthy child should be able to come out of the system and not end up as a NEET. So that and they track these things, they know what's going on. So if that's happening coming through the care system, obviously it's showing you there's signs that either there's trauma, something that's preventing this from happening. And that's where you don't just see the stats and say, oh, they're all going to just end up like that. You actually go in and investigate what is setting certain young people coming out of the system that are not NEET. I don't see none of that going on. Like, are people actually studying these things? So there needs to be more research into what's causing good outcomes and what's causing bad outcomes.
Yeah, what's the magic ingredients?
Yeah.
Let's replicate that as best we can.
Instead of, they're all gonna just come out and be, NEET. And that's a lot of stigma, because people don't expect you to do well when you're in the care system. They don't expect you to come. They just assume that you're gonna be a statistic. But it doesn't happen. There's a lot of us out here doing well, but nobody has the time to sit down and look at it. Yes, they celebrate it, but nobody's actually investigating what's causing that. And I've actually done research on this. And it goes back to having stability, like not being moved around a lot in care, like having a stable home, having actual foster carers and people that believe in you and care about you and actually show you love, And it's simple things like that. And that's what the research is showing. But yet people the system refuses to kind of, if you're lucky, if you get that,
Yeah.
I think for me, everything always boils back down to money. And like what you were saying, Shanika, with the stability, that's something that has had massive knock-on effect due to the lack of funding, the stability in placements, and not even just like foster placements and residential children's homes, but even like support for accessing mental health services and things like that.
Youth clubs.
Yeah. I mean, what youth clubs? Like, there aren't any nowadays. That's another thing. It's like they just aren't any available. I remember when I was younger, there were a youth club round corner from our doctors, and it was just shut down. We used to sit outside it, like it was a derelict building, and how sad. Like, I think a big thing as well, going back down to what you were saying, Alice, around this 1,000. Is it 1,600 a month?
Yeah.
Like what you were saying, like, yeah, brilliant that you're giving this money, but actually you're setting young people up to fail. Like, what are you doing by giving this money? Like, are you setting young people up to fail or what? And I think it goes back to what we've been saying before about setting young people up so that they can be self-sustainable and and equip themselves. We can to equip young people with skills so that they know how to navigate adulthood and they know where to go to as well if they're not too sure. And for me, why it always boils back down to money is because this isn't seen as a priority in our social care system at the moment, because of the lack of money that they've got. They're too busy using the money that they've got to give to private fostering agencies for placements, and also for crisis intervention work. Like, they haven't got funding to look at the extra, what if you were at a restaurant, what you'd class as a side or an extra. That's what they see as like preventative work and giving young people love and giving them positive experiences. They see that as a bit of an add-on, nice extra type thing, because they're struggling to meet the bare minimum needs of young people anyway. They're struggling with what they've got already. And it's like you were saying, Alice, it's not just being able to afford financially, it's mentally, it's all aspects of things. But for me, I always see it boiling back down to money, and the reason why these services are in places because they're not prioritised because of lack of funding.
And I wish as well, I really, really hope that one day when you turn 18, the normal thing isn't to sit down with your social worker and sign on for benefits.
Oh, yeah.
I really, really wish that is like a slim minority that have to do that for some extenuating circumstance. I hate that it's the norm. I hate that it's like, when they turn 18, they go on benefits. No, we should have a plan. We should have something that means that we are going to uni or we are in employment, we are starting our career. We should have something in place by this point. Fine, if you go into care 6 months before your 18th birthday, all right, let you off. You know, you need some healing time, you need to be looked after a little bit longer, you need some help, fine. But if you're in care from like early teens or you know, pre-teens, young, there's enough time there. It shouldn't be the next step. It's just ridiculous. There's going, right, lean on the state, lean on the state, lean on the state, and it's like, and then that's thrown in our faces about how we're neat and with this and with that. And but what do you expect? That was literally what I did on my 18th birthday. My social worker came over, helped me fill in my universal credit. Well, it was income support back then. But do you know what I mean? I mean, I was at college at the time, and because I was a care leaver, I was entitled to universal income support because I was in education. So, okay, let's call that something that was going to help me on my way to my career. Fine. But that shouldn't be what happens. That shouldn't be the situation.
And just to say that the money is not enough. Because you're coming out of a system that actually provided everything for you, and then you have to live on that, and you're not prepared for the real world.
Exactly.
Budget and all that. A lot of changes.
That's where the £1,600 is useful. That is money that you can actually provide for yourself with enough to not be stressing out. But let the money be something that provides you with an ability to get a career, get a life, get a goal, get a journey, not just to stop you from floundering until that money runs out. Do you know what I mean?
On that, like with the benefits as well. Sometimes going on benefits, it prevents you from working. Like
yes.
It penalizes you for working. So it's just a vicious cycle.
I hear that, Shanika. It's one of those, someone once said to me, like, once you're in the system, you're stuck. Like, you ain't getting out type thing. And I'm one of those people where I was like, well, watch me, you know? So it's like,
yeah.
It's so bloody difficult. It is so hard. They are not easy systems to navigate, you know, and we're not equipped with the best tools. But I think it moves us quite nicely on to the next bit of what are the main 3 points that we need or what we see needs to be prioritised in reforming the care system. So I can go first, and I think we've banged on about this like quite a lot as a whole. Just funding, more funding for starters, but better spending with funding. Definitely with a strong leaning to that funding going towards better training for people that are working with young, vulnerable people, and also towards prevention side of work and the early help and creating spaces, community spaces, so that we are actually able to lean on community.
I would say maybe allowing social workers to be more therapeutic in their approach and to be less risk averse. In terms of being less risk averse, you can't really do that with safeguarding, but I feel like there should be a split in the system where there are social workers within the community, social workers that are actually able to be more like a counselor or a therapist to young people. And also they have trauma training so that they can actually be able to better support young people that are going through these difficult situations and stuff. Also, that will allow them to actually have the space to care and to do the free stuff, actually show empathy and build good relationships, stuff like that. There has to be a system that nurtures that. So that's one of my important things. And I will add on to that accountability as well. Accountability with like targets attached to those accountability as well, like with the reporting and accountability with outcomes.
And I would just add on end of that and reporting to also to learn from mistakes, for there to be a system in place for people, for mistakes to be accepted and also learned from, and people to not just be chastised against things, a system that accepts learning from what has worked and what hasn't worked.
For me, I think thinking ahead, like the second you're in care, it's about preparing for adult life. Obviously, age appropriate, like you have to be a child, that's fine. But in being a child, you're preparing for adult life. You know, everything, if you're not experiencing life how a child should, you're not growing into an adult. So yeah, everything should be gearing towards that day when you turn 18 and you leave care. You have to be able to set sail. They're just shoving us off with this patchy holy raft and we're just drowning. Like you have to be spending those years in care building that boat. And then that day on your 18th birthday, you're like, yeah, I'm gone, bye. I don't even need this. I'm gone. Like, see you yesterday. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm off. You don't want that to be a scary day. You want it to be an exciting day. You know, the first day of the rest of your life, you want to be going on to that. And I just wanted to mention as well about the prevention. For me, I feel like prevention should be far before even a child is being looked at as someone that needs help. So it should be teaching parents how to parent before children are even thought about. You know, parenting classes at school when you're young. There's I can't put my hands on it or tell you where it is, but I've read about research that's been done that children as young as 4 who are age appropriately given a doll and taught how to give it a stroke and be nice to it and stuff like that are better parents when they grow up. So it really is like, let's start from the beginning. Let's be teaching people care and empathy and, you know, how to be a good person, and that will translate into how to be a good parent. So I really do think like we should aim really for a day where there isn't a system because everyone's a good parent. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, that's me.
I love that. I think that was brilliant. I think we're going to have to wrap up now, but I just wanted to finish it on normally, well, the OGs from listening to our podcast will know that we always like to stick with the theme of what advice would we give our younger selves. But for this episode, I think we was kind of thinking of what advice would we give to a young person that's listening who might be currently in the care system. And I think collectively as a whole, we all wanted to kind of say, just get involved with the charity, see what's out there, do a bit of research. If you need get an advocate, if you need to get an advocate, just research and have a look, see what's out there and get in touch with us as well. We'd love to hear from anyone that's listening, and we would love to try and help in whatever way we can as well, and signpost some useful organisations that we might have been involved in to recommend to you, and we'll list them all below too.
I just wanted to say, me harping on about how your childhood is preparation for being an adult, there are ways that you can try and do this yourself. If the care system is not providing for you, find out where you feel you need to grow and learn and look at, find interests and fight, get an advocate and ask for special funds to be made available. You do have rights to, like we've said, the health and well-being, stuff like that. You have rights, you have certain things that need to be met by social services. Get an advocate to help you with that. I got it quite easy because mine was educational. All my stuff was educational in the clearest sense. George, however, he had to fight for so much of his funding to be able to go to tournaments and table tennis, stuff like that, because it was seen as, like Evie said earlier, a side dish, but he got it funded. So you need to fight for that. And you need to research the policies and make them work for you until the day that it's much easier. But this is your care. You are in the centre of it and you have the power to do as much as you can to make that suit you. So, yeah, that's what I would say.
I think we're going to wrap up now, guys. I think that's it from us today. But thank you, everyone, for listening. And thank you, guys, for joining me on the podcast.
Thank you for listening to Let's Talk Conflict.
We'd love to hear from you, so if you'd like to get in touch, you can reach us on Let's Talk Conflict at leapcc.org.uk or find us on Twitter and Instagram at leap_cc.
This podcast has been produced in partnership with Leap Confronting Conflict and edited by Helena Webb.
Let's Talk Conflict has been supported by the Esme Fairburn Foundation, the Kurt and Magda Stern Foundation, the Trebian Trust and the Rain Foundation.